Our message today is going to begin with a denial, and that is, I do not accept unrest in the world that I perceive. In New Thought, we have affirmations and denials, and in our fellowship, we focus a lot on affirmations because of their positivity, but denials are also important, especially in a unity church. Unity actually had its first legs standing up with a denial when Myrtle Fillmore had gone to a lecture. She was in poor health, and she'd gone and hear a speaker talk about some of the dynamics and the spiritual laws of this thing back then called New Thought in the late 1800s. And with that, she came home and she began using the denial, I am a child of God. I do not inherit illness. And she would speak that denial a few times every day. And before long, she started to see her health dramatically improve. And of course, her husband Charles saw this going on, and he had a keen interest in it. And together they worked. And from that small little denial, we have what is today a worldwide organization, Unity Worldwide Ministries. And indeed, these are such challenging times. And of course, this modern world we live in is filled with all forms of social media and all different ways that we can interact with people that we've never met, we probably never will meet in our life. And I sometimes am just so taken aback by the horrible, horrible things that complete strangers will say to one another. The Republicans are making fun of the Democrats are making fun of the Republicans, everybody's making fun of the socialists. I mean, there's just so much unrest, and people just say the most vicious, horrible things to each other. And there was a period of time when I would follow some of these threads because I like to think of myself as open-minded, and if somebody can sit and have an intelligent conversation with me, and even if I disagree with them, it's a learning experience for me. But when it becomes so acidic and vitriolic and hateful that you come to a point where you leave, reading some of these things and you just feel so tangled up inside because of all this unrest. And then we have to put into play our New Thought principles and know that indeed there can be all this unrest out there, but it's how we perceive it in our mind, because we know that we create our reality with the way that we think and see things. And if we see that, as some people are saying, oh my gosh, the world is a mess because all of these things are happening, if that's what we want to believe, then of course that's what we're going to see, that's what we're going to interpret. But if we know, as New Thought students, that divine spirit is at work in the midst of everything, in the midst of even the most trying of circumstances and situations, divine spirit is always there, whether we access it or not. That divine spirit is always with us and within us. Then we can begin to perceive the world as a place of perfect harmony and perfect love. And we can see beyond appearances to the contrary. We can see beyond the bickering and the upset and the anger, and know that there is only one true and divine thing that is at the center of and running this entire universe that we call our home, and that is divine spirit. That is divine spirit. It's not the Democrats, it's not the Republicans, it's not the progressive, it's not the liberals, it's divine spirit that is guiding and directing us and this world. And so the way that we perceive it, when we find ourselves in the midst of these hateful, vitriolic conversations or reading a thread or circumstances and situations, we know to center ourselves with the divine, because we know that the divine is within us as well as with us, guiding us and directing us. And so we can calmly hear all of this stuff and let it just wash over us as though it were a breeze passing by. And certainly after this last week, we'd all love a breeze passing by because it's been so warm. So think of these horrible, horrible things that we're hearing, and they're everywhere. Even if you aren't a person in social media, you turn on the radio, you turn on the television. This station is promoting, this side of the argument, and this news station is promoting this side of the argument, and they all seem to be taking jabs at each other. It can take the human mind to a place of unrest and unhappiness and worry and concern about the state of the future and the world and where we're going. But those of us who are aligned with that divine spirit, that is, as I mentioned earlier, it's with us whether we are aligning ourselves with it or not. It's always with us and within us. And so when we do align ourselves with this divine spirit and we perceive the world as a place that is perfect, spiritual, and divine, just as we are, then we know not to let ourselves get all tangled up and upset and worried. And especially, I hear this from people who have young children, and they have such concerns about the state of the world and the future. And of course, if you and your children can come to a place of understanding that divine spirit is in charge of this whole thing, we're just here, and maybe we're making a bit of a muck of it here and there, but none of that matters because divine spirit is in control. And so when we align ourselves and our minds and our thinking with the knowledge, all of the wonderful things that we learned from our Wayshower, Christ, he told us, because maybe they didn't have such ways of communicating as we do today, but certainly even back in the times when Christ walked the earth, there were different fractions and different parties, and we know there were people in leadership who were afraid of losing power, and that was why Christ was taken away, because he had too many people following him, and it was the leaders who thought the attention should be on them, and they hauled Christ away, and they put him through this seemingly false tribunal, this false trial, and we all know where that went. But we also know that we learned wonderful, wonderful lessons. You know, if you could devote even once a year one of the Gospels, say, you know what, this year I'm going to thoughtfully peruse Matthew, Mark, Luke, or John. Each of them detail the life of Christ in such a wonderful way, and they share with us all the wonderful things that Christ shared, that he wanted to share for generations and generations and generations to come. We know that that can be a wonderful thing, and that can take us away from these harmful things that almost are toxic sometimes that we're seeing on the television or reading in the newspaper or seeing in our different social media feeds, and know that indeed we do not accept unrest in the world that we perceive. We perceive the world as a place that is perfect, spiritual, and divine, because we, like everyone else, are created in the image of God, and God is perfect, and therefore we are perfect. And as we mention often, perfect people sometimes do imperfect things. That doesn't make them no longer be perfect. They are perfect. You are perfect in every way, and every day. And indeed, divine spirit dwells within you as well as is with you as you walk this journey through this thing that we call life. So the goal for the week, as much as you're able to, is refrain from participating in hostile remarks, discussions, positions which interfere with the divine grace within. Because within this divine spirit is the grace. We're all filled with grace. God has given us grace, and we all have that option. We can get down into the mud and we can bicker, and we may win that fight, but the war is still going to rage on. Or we can declare that we are perfect, spiritual, and divine, and we are filled with divine grace, the divine grace that God has for all of us in each and every situation, and choose not to participate in that. And just understand that the world we live in is indeed a perfect place, and divine spirit is in charge. Contrary to what the worriers or the naysayers or the whatever fraction or unhappy party is saying, we know that divine spirit is in charge of this whole thing, and has been since the beginning, since the creation. And so that is our comfort, and that is the divine grace within. And so the good news, which we'll share with you again, is that we are always filled with the love and the eternal grace of divine spirit. Expressing this inner grace is a choice each of us have complete control over. Being the expression of divine grace, we neither participate in nor are we affected by the unrest that's in this outer world. We can choose to live wrapped around this divinity or not. However, it is always there. It's always there. It's like having a bank account full of money and living on the street and being hungry, when all you have to do is reach into that bank, that divine spirit that's always there. It's going to be there anyways, whether you're using it and aligning yourself with it or not. So why not align yourself with it? So wrapped in this divinity, it is always there. We can be the demonstration of the Wayshower and always have the Christ within us greet the Christ within all others. Even the most vitriolic, detestable person you may come across, understand and know, we know as New Thought, as truth students, that indeed there is the Christ within them, and they are perfect. And as we know, sometimes all of us who are perfect may do something imperfect. That doesn't stop us from being perfect, spiritual, and divine because we do something imperfect. We still are created in the image of God. We are the beloved children of God, and it is His desire that we should have lives of great happiness, great health, great prosperity, great love, and great peace. So this week, as I say, as much as possible, refrain from participating in any hostile remarks, and be the divine grace that is with you and within you in all circumstances, in all situations. All right, I'd like to invite you to join me in prayer. Eternal and loving and divine Spirit, we thank you indeed for filling us with the grace from within, and we thank you for allowing us to exude this grace in every circumstance, in every situation, regardless of the circumstances, regardless of who is saying what around us. We know that we are connected to divine spirit. We know that we are indeed perfect, spiritual, and divine, as are all of the brothers and sisters that we share this wonderful world that you have created with. We thank you, and we thank you again for giving us the wonderful reprieve from anxiety, the wonderful knowledge that everything is going to be all right because it is indeed divine spirit who is in charge, that it is indeed divine spirit that is in control and running this wonderful, beautiful planet that we call home. We thank you for allowing us to have this knowledge. We thank you for letting us read the words of Christ, the Wayshower, and knowing that indeed the answer to all challenges, all circumstances, all situations is love. We thank you for filling us with love, with this divine grace, and for allowing us to exude that in every circumstance and situation. We thank you, O divine Spirit, in the name of faith, hope, and love. Amen.